name's Mason, and today we're going to take this bookcase and turn it into a coffin. So as you can see here, we've already got some of the shelves taken out, but that's going to be our first step, is to remove all the shelves. So this shelf is built in, so we're going to have to address that later once we get the sides off. All right, the next step is going to be removing the back. Alright, now that we've got it disassembled, I'm just going to go over some quick math here to help figure out what kind of measurements we need in order to get a template built for this coffin. So I started off here by taking that back piece, and I just got the measurements for it, and I drew this onto some paper. Now I'm going to find the center mark for our width and our length, and then I'm just going to make a line for both of those. This middle line here is going to be the widest part of our coffin. I'm kind of just eyeballing about 3/4 of the way up from the bottom, or about 1/4 of the way down from the top. I don't have that exact measurement, but it can be easily found. So then I'll make this line across. And then from there, we're going to get our top measurement, which is going to be, I believe, 16 inches. So I'm going to go from the center mark and go over 8 inches to the left and then 8 inches to the right. And I got these general guidelines from a coffin template that I found online. So the top is generally just a little bit wider than the base. And I believe the base I did 16 inches, or I did 14 inches. So I went 7 inches from the middle to the left and then 7 inches to the right. And then once we have those measurements, we're just going to connect the dots, tracing from that center line to our mark on the right, and same thing for the top. So just take those measurements, trace them onto the back, and cut it out. I messed up on the right side as it's a little bit longer, so I had to go back and cut that out. Alright, so we got our back of our coffin template cut out here. We're going to use this little angle finder, and we're going to take the angle from the base of this template. We're going to keep our bottom piece of the bookshelf flat. So it's going to sit just like this. And then we're going to take that angle and we're going to cut it onto this edge and then mount it to this section right here. So I eyeballed this angle that we got onto the fence of my circular saw. It's hard to see with the saw guard in the way, but it's roughly that angle, which comes out to about 9 degrees. All right, so we got our first cut. Now we're just gonna measure up the length of the side here to our corner. And that came out to 4 foot 9/16. So we're just gonna measure up 4 foot 9/16 on this piece, and do our next angle cut. Now we're just gonna find this angle, measuring at the halfway point up here. So you take this angle, and that's gonna be our next cut up here at 4 foot 9/16. So we're gonna transfer this angle onto our circular saw and then make that cut all the way across. So we got our angle here. We're gonna take that up to our piece of wood right here. This is 4 foot 9/16. And then we put that on there like that. Line it up. Make that line on there, and that's how we're gonna cut. Our cutoff piece from the piece we just cut on the side, we're just gonna take this next angle here, and then we're gonna transfer that onto this one. Here's our side piece, and here's the next upper portion that we just cut. So those two will go like that. Now for the second cut on this top piece here, we're gonna take the one we just cut. We're gonna take this measurement here, which is 21 3/8. We're gonna measure up from our high point, this outer edge, up 21 3/8. Anyway, and then we're gonna take this angle, whatever that is, and that's gonna go at the 21 3/8 mark. We're gonna cut it like that. All right, we just cut the other side. Same thing as the first side. We got that long side piece and the short side piece cut. I just cut the base 14 inches onto our base piece, 14 inches. Now we're gonna cut the top piece. It's a little bit bigger, and then we'll get it mocked up and ready to screw together. All right, so now we're just gonna pre-drill our holes, use some 2-inch screws, and start securing everything together. Here's our base piece at 14 and our left side piece. Here we go, we got everything roughly screwed together. Looks like a coffin. I'm gonna go through and countersink all these screws so they're not sticking out. These ones were kind of a pain. Had to do like a makeshift pocket hole. But here we go. All right, so we got the frame standing up. I just tacked this temporary board on there right now for extra support. And now we're just gonna dry fit these shelves. I'm gonna brad nail them in to get them set in place temporarily, and then go back and screw all the shelves in. All right, so we got the coffin moved back into the garage. I just laid it down, put the back piece on. We're gonna go through and screw this to the back. There's the back piece on. Before I put the back on, I also took a second to cut some notches out in the corners of all the shelves. You can see it better right there on this shelf. And that's just to run lights up and down the back. Next step is we're gonna get the trim pieces cut out and just clean this edge up a little bit, and then all the way around. All right, so I got the base piece and the top piece, the trim on. Here's the side. I just laid that on there, ran it a little long, and then marked underneath to get that angle. So I just made that first cut. So now we got our bottom angle. Now we're just gonna come up here to the side and do the same thing. Make a mark right there. Just try and get it as close as we can. And then same thing with this side piece right here. Cut it to size for this side. And then do the same thing on that side. Alright, so we got our side pieces cut. They were a little short, so I did what I could. We're gonna have a little bit of a gap up here and a gap right there. It'll look better once it's all nailed together. But we're just gonna wood fill that along with a bunch of other holes, including all the screw holes. Wood fill all of that. Then we'll get it cleaned up and ready for paint. Alright, just got all the wood filler put in the holes. We'll let that dry, sand it down, then we're ready for paint. I apologize for all the bad camera angles throughout this video. I tried to film in landscape mode the most I could, and then I think I just forgot for a couple of those sections, but we got it done. So here, everything's assembled, everything's cleaned up, wiped it out with a dry rag to get all the dust and debris. Then I went back with some degreaser to just get everything clean, start with a nice clean base. Then I'm just using a paint sprayer here with primer. We're going to do 2 coats of white primer, and then we're moving into our final coat here, which is tricorn black. And we're just going to apply this with our paint sprayer. We're going to do 2 coats of this, and then once this paint dries, we're going to do 2 coats of a top coat, and for that we're going to use polyacrylic. Alright, once all that polyacrylic is dried, we now have a nice durable coat on this, so we can bring it inside and stage it. Here I just used some Halloween decorations we had from around the house. Right now it is Halloween time, so these were readily available. I had these orange Halloween lights. I kind of just strung these around the front. They weren't, or the notches I cut out on the back of the shelves were just too small to fit these lights in, otherwise I would have ran them around the back. But this is just to give you an idea of the setup, what it would look like if it did have lights. The notches were made more for an LED strip, which would fit perfect around the back. Overall, this came out pretty good. I'm going to try and make a couple more of these. I'll try and take some better videos with some better narrating and get some better measurements for you guys. The whole process isn't too hard. You just got to find those angle cuts, and this would be much easier if you had a miter saw that would slide out. You can do this with a circular saw like I did, and you're just going to get some angle cuts that are close but not quite exact. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.